this video we're going to look at another really excellent and powerful tool within Excel. That is the ability to query or get data from the web. Let's say I have a website that is of interest to me, perhaps this Google Finance page. And within this page there's a variety of different data that I need to check on a regular basis. I might want to perform some calculations based on this data. One option available to me is to find the data, highlight the table, copy that data and add it to my workbook. But that will rely on me always going to that website, finding the data, copying it, and making sure that I keep my formatting consistent. A better way to do it is to use a web query. With a web query, we are effectively able to pull the data directly from a website into Excel. To start my web query, I need to copy the URL to the clipboard. But I can't go directly to the cell and copy the entire cell because the web browser clipboard won't recognize the cell in the clipboard. It will only recognize text. So I need to go into the formula bar, highlight the hyperlink, copy. From here I can now go to get my data from the web. At this point Excel launches a simple web browser. You may get some script errors such as this one. It's nothing to worry about, it's just the web browser is not very sophisticated and may struggle to run certain items on a web page. I can just ignore this error and then go to my address bar and paste in the URL that I want to see. Once it's pasted in, I click Go. My mini web browser will now take me to the page. I'm going to expand this so I can see more clearly the contents of the web page. And as I move through the web page, you will notice these little arrows. The little arrows indicate to me that there is table-like data within the web page. So I can click here and highlight this table, or click here on this table, and that will be the information that is copied into the web query. Let's say I want this stock information to be imported into Excel. I simply click on my yellow arrow and it becomes a green tick. Once I've done selecting my data, I simply click Import. I can choose to either import into the existing worksheet or choose a new worksheet. I'm going to leave the default of existing worksheet and click OK. I can also modify the properties, but we'll look at that in a minute. Excel will then spend a couple of seconds retrieving the information from the web and then dumps it neatly into a range within our sheet. It is not immediately visible, but Excel has a live connection to the website. If I want to update my data, I can right-click on my query and go to Refresh. If there's any change in the data, it will be automatically updated. Before we move on to another example, let's just talk about some of the limitations within web queries. Even though this is fantastic functionality to be able to get information directly from the web, there's some things that we can't do. For example, many websites still use Flash. Flash is not recognized by the Excel web browser and cannot detect any tables that are built in Flash. Another restriction is that Excel cannot navigate past user account control. So any website that you have to put in a password to gain access to the data will not be able to query that data. Let's have a look at another example. I can also choose to get information such as weather reports. Again, I cannot simply copy the cell, I need to copy the URL in text form from the formula bar. I press copy, go to get external data from the web, and we will see the web browser pop up again. I'll choose to ignore the script's error and paste in my URL. Again, if you get any more of these script errors, don't worry about them. All we're interested in is finding tables within these web pages. As you can see, my website has loaded, but I cannot find valid yellow tags. Excel has tried to recognize some tables, but there doesn't seem to be any data in them. This is an example of a possible website that has useful information, but doesn't display it in a way that Excel can understand. Let's return to our original demonstration and have a look at some of the properties within our web query. I'll right-click on my table and go to Data Range Properties. Within here we can change a number of options, for example the name of our web query. Some of the most important settings are the refresh controls. First of all, we'll probably want to leave enabled background refresh, but we also may want to set a different frequency for the refresh. For example, we could choose to have our data refresh every minute. If you do set a refresh rate of 1 minute, Excel will use a fair amount of its resources to go and get that data from the web. So if you're running complicated formula on your worksheet, a refresh rate of 1 minute is going to slow down your computer significantly. Another simple option might be to refresh your data whenever you open the worksheet. There are some other formatting options available here that we can adjust, but the most important one to worry about is your refresh rates. So despite the limitations of web queries, they're incredibly useful tools. Once I have the data in my table format, I can then use various other Excel functions. For example, I could build a formula that relates to these two values, or I could potentially use a graph. I can build my chart and any other functionality I want to add into my worksheet, and whenever the data is refreshed, my chart will automatically refresh. We'll look at charts in much more detail in later videos, but for now, it's great to understand the power of the web queries.